Welcome to the Never Been Promoted podcast and YouTube channel. I'm on a mission to help you cut the time to all the things that are holding you back so you can unleash your entrepreneur. Hey, welcome back to Never Been Promoted. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am your host, Thomas Helfrich, and we're on that mission to help entrepreneurs get better at entrepreneurship. We want to help you cut ties, metaphorically, of course, or literally, to everything holding you back. And, that could be anything, right? If you've been here before, it could be people. It could be the way you think, the way you don't know you should think. It could be your faith. It could be almost anything that you've assigned meaning to that's put you into some kind of a fear excuse cycle. And our guest today is Robert Brenizer. I think I got that right, Brenizer. But he is the founder of Spectre Defense. So we'll get into his. Hopefully I didn't brutalize that too, but that's my trademark. I mess up intros so we can repeat it a million times over and over, and it's just good marketing. But we're talking about his journey to build his company and how he built the Spectre Defense Solutions and where faith plays in, and his story is really powerful and impactful and as a veteran. So just listen up here. We're going to get going here in like about 13 seconds after I did the small call to action. It's the only thing you do. Even if you're a guest, you should do this. Follow. That's all it. Follow on Apple or Spotify. It's a little button you click. And then when we have new episodes, we do like 5 a week come out. You get alerted. It really helps us, helps the guest, helps the mission. And now I can de-sleazily take my call to action. And I don't like doing those, but you got to do it. I'm going to bring Robert on. Rob, how are you, man? Welcome to Never Been Promoted.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I was thinking, you're in the military, right?
I was.
Are you, here's the thing. That's the only way I was getting promoted is if I could stick it out in the military, because I think you get time based, right? So if you're there long enough, at some point they'll move you forward to do something.
That's true. Obviously, performance is going to play a factor in there as well.
I could have been the first person ever to be 20 years in the military and still be like a private in boot camp. The guy never got out of the first 6 weeks. It's crazy.
We did, there's such thing as several year E4s, so they make the world go round.
Yeah. We call those drill sergeants. That's why they never leave. They yell at people for the rest of their lives because they never got out. Thank you for joining today. Where do you call home?
Yeah, I'm out of Mobile, Alabama.
Mobile, Alabama. What is it about Mobile, Alabama and tornadoes? Why does the tornado like to come there and tear up things? I don't understand.
Well, you might be referring to the hurricanes.
That's a giant tornado, is it not?
They're similar. Obviously, the tornadoes start out on land, but the hurricanes start out in the ocean and then make their way. We're right on the Gulf Coast, so we have our fair share of them every year.
Yeah, you do. The people who live in the Gulf Coast, the Panhandle, I know it's nothing we're talking about today, but it's impressive. Like the people just kind of take it, and then they just rebuild. And they take it and they rebuild. And it's like, I'm in Atlanta and we're just getting mad because we get like rain for 3 days. We're like, come on,
right? It's
too much. And we're in high ground, so we're fine. We're in the sniper land. Like we can snipe the rest of the Southeast. We're good.
That's right.
Now, in your family, before we got on air, you have a dog. It made me wonder. Don't leave anybody behind is a mantra of military. However, if you had to leave one person behind to save the rest, which one of your family, including pets, are you leaving behind?
Let's see. That's a.
Mother-in-laws are included in this, by the way. Any in-laws?
Well, we're not going to go there, but yeah, I definitely have to say my son's gecko. That would probably be it probably brings the least amount of value.
Right. You could eat it though. You could just chew on it on the way out. You could just make beef jerky on it. Like this thing is food on the way out of here. We're gone. All right, son. He doesn't mean that. He's just kidding. If you ever hear this, or maybe you share that with him. Mine are the cats, just so you know. They're going to become free kitties. Like, run free, we're gone.
Well, I don't do cats. I'm allergic to cats.
I'm allergic to the kids not taking care of the cats and the fights it causes upstream with my relationship. Anyway, we're going to table that. We're going to move forward. All right, tell me about what your company does. So, you know, if we were in a movie, fast forward about 3/4 through it, and you start off with the opening scene of the, you know, the pinnacle of, oh my gosh, you do that, and then I want you to back up and tell me how you got there.
Yeah. So Spectre Defense Solutions is the name of our company. And we are a boutique private security company that offers custom tailored security plans to our clients. Each client is unique, and therefore their security needs are unique with that. And so we develop custom tailored plans with them, understanding what their strengths and capabilities are and what their weaknesses and vulnerabilities are, and then determining what that gap is which is what we call risk, and then coming up with a plan to mitigate and eliminate said risk.
Wait, so you do like physical security and cybersecurity, or just holistic for a individual company? Like, how do you, or do you not box it that way? Is it just kind of whatever?
I do actually. If there is a need, if there is security or defense in the scope of the job, we can perform it. And so with that being said, we do physical, and that is our, you know, claim to fame. That's what, you know, we get most of our work with our physical, but we do have cyber capabilities. We also do training, not only for our operators, but our clients as well. And then we also provide consulting. So we do some consulting work as well. And that could range anywhere from providing risk assessments to just talking about with the director of security for corporate security, what their posture looks like, churches, schools, you name it, we do it.
So from an example, so like with the recent news of the CEO of United Healthcare pretty much being assassinated by somebody who, you know, 3D prints a suppressor, crazy. Is this like an area where, hey, you know, United Healthcare with your unlimited funds, you might want to have a detail unit on your top executives pretty much when they're anywhere in public? I mean that's an argument. Like if they had a person or two on there that had their route and pre-cleared the door, would have seen that coming.
Yeah, I think anybody that is in a role or position such as a CEO, and especially dealing with something like health insurance, where you're going to piss people off. You know, I think it's vital in this day and age that you have some level of security, and you know what that looks like. That's for another conversation, because we could go a whole lot of different avenues with that, and that's like what I mean by custom tailored with the client. But there needs to be some sort of level of security, you know, analyzed by corporate for somebody like that.
Yeah, I mean, like we think about that, right? Just, and we'll move past this, but like that guy's making, or the person is around 10 million a year. So if to secure that $10 million asset cost you $250,000 a year, or whatever it would be, right? Maybe it'd be a little more, but that's a pretty good insurance policy. I don't know. It just, sometimes I see that and it's horrible what happened, but to some degree it's preventable because there's enough wealth and money there to protect a very valuable asset for you as an organization, and well, people don't do it.
No, you're spot on. And here's the problem that I run into as a security business owner. Okay. And you can be the best in the world in this line of work. You can be the best in the world at what you do. But at the end of the day, if a potential client doesn't know who you are or how to find you, then it really doesn't matter. You know, and people typically don't want security, or don't think they need security until they do, at which point it is, you know, a little too late.
So it is. If you get hacked, you're done. It's too late. You're just negotiating a ransom, or, you know,
yeah. I mean, when we talk about security, we need to get out of this reactive mindset. Okay. Specifically with what we do in executive protection, close protection, things of that nature regarding the CEO. We are proactive operators. And what I mean by that is we have to understand if there is a threat, first of all, and then what is that threat? What are the threat's capabilities? What's the threat's motive? So that we can get 2 steps ahead of the threat. This reactive mindset, again, people don't think they want it until they do. And you got to understand, you got to ask yourself, especially if you're somebody like that, what is my life? What is my company? What is my family's lives? What is my company? What is my brand? What is my reputations? What is that worth? And yeah, you're going to pay a little bit of money, if you want somebody that's top tier, quality, talented at what they do and can get the job done. But again, you get what you pay for in this industry. Is it worth it? And I say yes.
And maybe we'll go back to your journey here a little bit. So how'd you qualify for this type of work? It'll probably, in your story, just a little I know about it, is going to explain why you started this. So I usually say, kind of qualify, but you tell your story. Where did the moment begin when how did you become you? I guess is probably the question I'm asking.
How did I become me? Well, we might have to do 2 episodes for that.
Listen, it is a Wednesday. I'm normally not on podcast. You can just go. Let's just talk. Okay. Don't worry about it.
I guess I'll put it this way. I was born defying death. I was adopted, and my birth mother was too young to have me, and her father was pushing her to get an abortion. She hasn't this part of the story is amazing in itself, and it's an amazing story for her. But unbeknownst to her, her best friend in high school had committed suicide the night before her appointment to go to the clinic, and then she gets to the clinic. Her boyfriend at the time took her, and she's going under anesthesia, and she hears her best friend tell her she needs to get out of there. And so she unhooks herself and walks right out of the clinic, and here I am today. And that's where it starts. So, I'm going to fast forward through a lot of that growing up part of that story. But, I just say that because, again, like I was born defying death, and somebody like myself, there's several solid, people that have had to deal with trials and tests their whole lives. That's been my life since the beginning, trials and tests. And ultimately it led to me becoming victorious, which we'll get to in a second. But as far as where security comes into play, I'm retired from the military. I joined the Army right after 9/11. I remember that day vividly. I'm sure anybody who was of at an adult age remembers it like it was yesterday. I was a junior in high school when that happened, and I remember sitting in my morning history class and them rolling the TV in, and we watched it, and I just remember anger, and just wanting vengeance. I remember going home from football practice that afternoon, and my mom was at the mailbox, and I got out of the car and I said, Mom, you already know what I'm getting ready to do. And she knew. So as soon as
favoring going to military prior to that, and this was like the bubble, or
no, I wasn't thinking about the military. Now I'd always, I grew up playing with GI Joes. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. I was always intrigued by the military, by combat, anything like that. I was always, paying attention in history class, but that wasn't, an option right at that moment. I was actually really trying to play college football. And when I say trying, I am not exaggerating. It would have been a D3 or a D2 school, but nonetheless, that was my intent. Say again.
If football's football, if you can get there on any college level, it's amazing.
That's what I wanted to do.
I mean, D1 is
that's what I wanted to do.
Like I don't think people realize how hard it is to make a D1 team, let alone the pro team. It's like, anyway, your best chance is to be 6'3", and you're normally a tackle, but you can kick a ball far and become a punter. Like that's your best shot, is being on the crappiest team possible and be a great punter.
Or a long snapper. Long snappers, if you can get good at one skill and snapping a ball, you can get a full ride anywhere. So
there's a metaphor there for entrepreneurship. Just get good at one thing really, really well. Probably in the military too. If you can hit something from a mile away that's moving, you got a job.
That's right.
All day long, we'll put you up there and we'll have a couple guys around you looking out for you. You're firing away. So you you went the Army. That's what you said, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
All right. We got a little delay, so sorry about that. I think I Googled a little on yours. Was your grandfather also in the 82nd?
No, he was attached to the 82nd. He was a transportation specialist. He got to D-Day, or he got to Normandy maybe a couple days after D-Day. So he wasn't a ground fighter, although he did have several, cool stories. But no, he was attached to 82nd.
I got it. And but so you get there and you take the military journey. Did you learn some of the skills you have now beyond, let's say, leadership and just discipline and things like that, but the actual in personal security, or tell me your path maybe of that, of how you've learned the skills and reapplied them in commercial?
Yeah, sure. So I remember, going to the recruiter when I finally turned 18, and initially I checked out the Marines. Everybody has this misconception, and I'm just poking fun at the Marines here, but that they're the hardest, they're the best, they're the first one in, and all that. And so that's why I went to the Marines first. But the thing that sent me to the Army was that they could not guarantee me the job. They couldn't guarantee me a job that, any specific job. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but I just went into the Army and I said, hey, look, this is what I want to do. I want to be a ground fighter. And I want to, do all the stuff with weapons and fighting. And the recruiter, did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm just putting you full screen to give you full marketing effect.
Yeah. The recruiter said, oh, you're talking about infantry. And I said, okay, sure, whatever. And he showed me a video. I was like, yeah, that's it. And not only that, but I want to be the baddest MFer I can be. So give me the airborne contract, give me the Ranger contract, give me all that kind of stuff. And so that's what I did. And so my background in the military and the Army was airborne infantry. And those are your ground fighters, your door kickers, your gun toters, your pack ruckers, and we just get it done. And so I started most of my career, or a lot of my career was spent in the 82nd Airborne. And I did a handful of deployments with them. I spent some time as an Army recruiter for a little while. I spent another several years out in Texas with the 1AD. I did everything you can do. I was an airborne school instructor, teaching new kids how to jump out of planes. And I worked at the infantry headquarters. And I did every single job, every single thing that an infantryman can do in an infantry unit, everywhere from the beginning as a rifleman all the way to a company first sergeant in charge of a 150-man infantry company, and as well as reconnaissance. So in the infantry, we have our scouts, Cav scouts, but then we have our infantry scouts as well, and that's the best of the best in the battalions. And so I was in scouts with them as well. So I did everything. I did multiple combat tours, 4 to Afghanistan, 2 to Iraq. I got a Bronze Star for Valor, which is the 4th highest military award in combat. A very stellar career, if I say so myself, until the end. And then that's kind of when things took a different route. So I did 17 years in the Army. And, you know, there's a lot of, you know, everybody's familiar with PTSD these days. And between those kinds of things that, and physical, my physical was questionable as well. I had a lot of neck problems, but there was just a lot of health problems coming up towards the end of that career. The PTSD stuff, you know, I was one of those soldiers that just drove on. I never went to sick call. I never, you know, got checked out. I never took the time to take care of myself, you know, physically or mentally, emotionally, spiritually, any of it. Hell, I didn't even, you know, I had put the Army, the government, my country, what we were doing, I put that ahead of everything, including my own family, for a long time. And you can imagine when you do that, and when you are one of those kinds of guys that just goes and 100 miles an hour and doesn't stop, so at some point something's gonna burn out, you know. And like I said, I was 17 years in when I was basically all but forced out due to I was medically retired. So I still get my benefits. I got 100% disability through the VA. And I've got, you know, combat service related compensation pay. So it all at the end equals up to what a pension would be. But I was in a very dark place at that time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, you know, in that, didn't interrupt you, just, you know, we've had several veterans on here, and we do, their stories are always so amazing. And I think actually veterans make some of the best entrepreneurs because they're typically not, they don't want to go work for somebody. Like they have the discipline, they have the drive, they need the space to not have to go through that again, but do it on their own terms. But they do need guidance because it is a new world. And there's lots of things. And I was going to ask you, like, you know, just, you know, how did you navigate through the transition from, I have this order but I'm like not wanted here now, and that's what I wanted to do, right? You were a career guy, right? And all of a sudden you're told no, and now you're like, good luck. I know you got some money coming in, but that's not going to do much for you. So how did you navigate the darkness and the transition?
Well, I'm about to get into that, but I do got to say, so going back to the totality of my career, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn either, but when I say stellar, like, I mean, I was in a leadership position ahead of my pay grade the entire time I was in the military, all the way from a E3 team leader, a private first class team leader.
High flyer.
Say again?
You're a high flyer.
Well, I just, you know, I'm a mission first guy, and I know what, you know, if you tell me what it is, I'm going to get it done somehow, some way. You know, I was a E7 first sergeant, most junior first sergeant in the battalion, and also a junior sergeant first class at the time as well. So all that to say, you know, again, like, I had sacrificed myself, my family, everything for what I believed in and produced results. Again, this Bronze Star for Valor is you can read on it online, but that's just one story. Like there's so many of them that I can't even put a number to, of just the crazy shit that we were a part of back then. And so when you get towards the end of your career, towards the twilight of a 20-year career, and you've done all this stuff, and the military is not really doing much to help you at all. And in fact, I remember sitting with the directors of mental health at the post I was at, and my wife's with me. At this time, I'm in like a catatonic, zombified state almost. I can't make any rational decisions or thoughts. I had been in bed for 8 months or something like that, just wow. Gone. I was on several different medications. We had talked to, therapists, and I had done psychologists and psychiatrists, that we'd done basically anything you can think of. This is when ketamine therapy first came out. It was still kind of a pilot thing, and I paid out of pocket to do that. I got a 9-inch needle stuck in my neck called a stellate ganglion block that's supposed to relieve PTSD symptoms. We had done everything, and these people look at my wife and tell her, your husband is untreatable. And she's bawling, and she said, he's given everything to this organization, this company, this country, and you're just going to kick him out. You're just going to put him on the street. And they basically agreed. And so that's where I was. And we got out, and we moved to our home. And a month, a few weeks later, once our household goods came in, I'm back in bed again, like I'm not even able to put thoughts together really. And it got to a point where, my wife was like, "Hey, I need you to get out of bed, and I need you to do something now." And so she went to work one morning, and I remember rolling out of the bed and getting on my knees and praying for the first time, and really probably forever. And I said, "God, if you're real, then I need you to come down here and prove it now, not 4 years from now, not 8 months from now, not next week, not tomorrow, right now." And that afternoon, I got a phone call, which was the beginning of the rest of my life. And it was the phone call that changed my life. And that was the answer to my prayer. So it's an organization. My wife had been filling out forms for me to attend different types of veteran retreats. And there's a bunch of them out there. Go hunting with vets, go fishing with vets, tell war stories with vets, and all this kind of stuff. And that's not what I needed. I needed to get real, and I needed to get raw, and I needed to build myself back into a man. And so I had no idea what this was even about, but I knew the second that I heard this guy's voice that had called me, just the empathy and the compassion in his voice told me this is exactly where I need to be going. And I don't even need to know what I'm doing, just follow. And that's what I continue to do. And so I get out there. It's a nonprofit out in Washington State. And I don't know, can I plug the name or?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So the organization is called Veteran Rights, and that's RITES, like rite of passage. And their mission is to basically bring vets back from the dead, like myself. And again, I had no idea what I was doing, going out there, but They paid for everything. They flew me out there, and the first it was 12 or 14 days. The first few days we just sat around. There was only 6 of us. There were 6 veterans, 2 witnesses, 2 guides, and an elder. And what this was, unbeknownst to me at the time, is ceremony. It's ceremony. It's not religion, but it's very spiritual. And the first 4 days was us just unpacking our rucksacks full of stuff that we had been carrying for all these years. You know, everybody again thinks or attributes PTSD with military, but everybody's got trauma. Everybody's got grief going back to your childhood. And so we are just touching those topics that we probably hadn't ever even thought about ever for the first time, which was a very emotional setting. But what that was doing was it was preparing you for the next 4 days. And that's where the height or the magic of the ceremony happens. And that's on that 5th morning, we all picked a direction. We had 4 gallons of water, a tarp, and the clothes on our back, and we went out into the wilderness by ourselves for 96 hours. And it was a 96-hour, 4-day fast. No food, no camaraderie, no devices, just you, yourself, and the land. And that's where, you know, some people might call it a vision quest. That's where the magic really happened. And then you come back after those 4 days. It's kind of like a little celebration. You talk about your experience, and then you make a declaration. And I was declaring my manhood. I was declaring to be, you know, and I didn't know what that looked like at the time, but I was declaring to be the best husband, the best father I could be, and to be the provider that I needed to be the warrior I needed to be the healer I needed to be, and to be the teacher I needed to be. And so when I got back home, no, I didn't know exactly what that was going to look like right away, but for about a year or so, I was going through these little phases, what I call phases of awareness. Awareness of self was how it started. Understanding why I do things the way I do them, why I talk the way I talk, why I am the way I am. You know, just understanding myself and forgiving myself for things that I had done, either to myself or other people. And then that kind of turned into a phase of awareness of others. And that was understanding others and why are others the way they are. And again, forgiving others and putting things to rest finally. And then and then also understanding communication and relationships with other people and myself. And then that kind of blended into a third phase of awareness of the world, just understanding the world and who's running the show, why things are the way they are, you know, why are all of these terrible things going on in the world? You know, trying to understand and make sense of that and how the world works. Why am I paying so much in taxes every year? You know, whatever the case may be.
It's a great question.
And then, yeah. and then it turned, you know, that was about a year. And I didn't know what I wanted to do for a profession, but my fallback plan forever and ever had always been, well, if I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm going to coach high school football and I'm going to teach high school history. And so I was in school during this time, all of this time, these phases of awareness. I was in school, going to school for education, and then also coaching football. And so if you're a football guy and you've heard of Phillip Rivers, he was the quarterback for many years with the Chargers and at the end, the Colts, but he's an Alabama guy too. And he was coaching high school football team. It was his first year coaching. And I interviewed with him and signed on with those guys and coached football with Phillip Rivers for a little.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not a bad starting mentor.
No.
Made it to the big show in a key position. like you can learn a lot from that person of
Oh yeah.
what needs to happen to
Oh
win a
yeah.
game.
And he, you know, much respect to Philip for how he runs his program, how he runs his life, really. You know, that guy's got like 10 or 11 kids. So, you know, he's got to be on his game if he's going to have that many.
He basically made a football team is what he did.
That's right. That's what he did.
You're the punter. I don't want to hear it. Okay. And you're also the long snapper to yourself. So I don't know how you're going to pull that one off, but figure it out.
So, so yeah, when that season finished, right afterwards, basically, I was a groomsman in one of my best friend's weddings, and this guy is just a solid dude. And might I add, backing up a little bit, you know, I mentioned previously when I got out of the Army, I was on 9 different medications. Okay, 9 different medications. I'm on 0 medications to this day. I take my supplements, my workout, and that's it. And it's all self-done. I did it myself. All the credit in the world to veteran rights, all the credit in the world to my family. But I took myself off that stuff because, you know, we can get into that in another conversation as far as pharmaceutical companies and whatnot. But
well, I mean, and just because we lag, it'll look like I'm interrupting just a second, but like I think actually that's a point where you know, I don't take any medications either at 49, and I'm very proud of that. But as you look at things going forward, that's sometimes the answer, right? Dealing with something, and you're like, how can it not be, right? And so and I think some of the ties, the things that hold people back, are this kind of the belief in some of the lies you've been sold that you do need some things, and some things you might. I'm not going to just say that you know, I'm not a doctor.
For sure.
But there's a lot of things you don't that are just given to you because there's follow the money, right? It's the easy solution. You're not, you know, it's, oh, you have a bullet hole. We're just going to keep putting Band-Aids on that thing.
Yeah. And what are the symptoms of this medication, and how does that, and now you got to get another medication because of this. And then, you know,
right.
Yeah.
You take one thing, it messes up the next thing, and it takes the next thing. And at some point you're trying to find balance, and you're like, well, heaven forbid you forget it for one day or decide to, you know, get buck wild watching the Super Bowl, and you're like, oh God, alcohol just screwed up all that stuff for a month, whatever it is. The point is that sometimes you have to look at yourself and say, what do I need to change? Like for me, I, you know, wasn't an alcoholic or anything, but I quit drinking 18 months ago because I thought my last 10 years of my life, whenever it's going to be, will be better if I just don't have alcohol anymore. That was the antithesis of it. And I stopped drinking. I get way more. And since then, I've started a podcast that has 1 million subscribers, wrote a book, grew my company. There might be a correlation to time available. My chess rating has gone up. A friend of mine sent me my chess ratings.
What's your chess rating there?
Well, on Lichess, it's 20. It's just under 2,100. Wow. And but on chess, it's like 1,000 because I act a little crazy on. I think they're rated slightly different.
Yeah, I'm on chess.com, and I'm building mine up just because I wasn't taking it very seriously, but mine's probably around 1,000 if I'm playing.
We should play. We'll exchange our things because, but it's funny because but he said like, look, and my thing went like stop drinking and went like this. I was like, well, playing chess while drinking is a bad move because it's representative. Don't do it, by the way, or do it at a stoplight. I used to play when I drive. Great way to almost get in a wreck.
Yeah, don't do that.
You'll sit there and you're thinking about the moves, and all of a sudden, like people are like honking move, and you're like, I gotta quit doing this. It's like this is terrible. Anyway,
that's bad for your health. No chess.
Bad for your health, and all those in your car with you. So you went through. Okay, so let's. You went through a transformation. You came back. I assume your wife saw a different person, or the person she originally seen, or some version of this. Did you start almost like the Atomic Habits from there? Like 1% start building. I'm going to take care of the goats today. I'm going to take a shower tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, like small stuff. Is that how it went? Or was there more revelations and big stuff?
It started with the small stuff. You know, I knew I wasn't getting back in bed. I knew that much. And maybe I don't know what my mission is for the day or in life at this point. But I'm gonna figure it. I'm gonna figure something out, and I'm gonna make something happen. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna figure that out, and I'm gonna keep doing that until it clicks. And that's basically how it worked. Now, later on, yeah, there were some big revelations that came through, in later phases of awareness, spiritual phases of awareness. But at the beginning, it was just, let's figure this out. Let's figure out things that need to get done and then start doing them.
Yeah, it sounds like, so that sounds very analogous to your military career where you got stuff done. You said mission first, I'm going to do that again. That sounds like, oh, you figured it. I'm going to figure, my mission is to figure out what I'm doing next. Fair enough for as a statement.
Yeah.
Were you worried that you just fall back into the same routine that got you where you were, but in another 20 years? Does that concern you ever, that you're like, am I just doing the same shit again, but just applied differently?
Well, I think, the honest answer to that question is, I think everything comes in cycles for everybody. And that can be as macro or micro as you want to make it. And it can be as introspective or out there away from you as you want to make it. But my point is, I think everything is cyclical. And if you understand, how to read your cues, how to read your timelines, how to read, if you understand yourself, and that's what, why I said self-awareness came first, is understanding yourself. And if you do that, and if you're able to do that, I think it's much easier to get away from those. And I don't know if you've ever heard, he was a spiritual guru. He's passed away 7 or 8 years ago. Ram Dass was his name. And man, I
know the name. I couldn't say I'm familiar with the work, but the name sounds incredibly familiar. So, but
he was in the same circles as like Alan Watts and Timothy Leary and all those guys. He was a Harvard professor in psychology, and then he went out to the Far East and spent time in India. But there's a lot of good stuff of his. You can find really great stuff. But he said, enlightenment doesn't come from your all the times that you're going to fail. Enlightenment comes from, because it's, nobody's perfect. Enlightenment comes from the time in between those failures. So the shorter time span that you have, once you catch yourself in whatever that is, and then you understand you need how to get back to where you need to be, like as the more you work on that, the shorter time gap that is in between each of those thoughts or cycles or whatever you want to call them. And the more you do that over time, the more whole you become.
Interesting. I have to look that. I like the ideas behind that, of ties into some mindfulness too, right? Of
That's
being
it.
in your presence, and
it's being here now.
One of the books I read last year is called The Science of Mindfulness, which was from a Harvard lectures around that. And I think that's where I heard the name mentioned and referenced in that. So I think that's probably where because that concept sounds very familiar. It's accelerating the presence moments in between.
That's it.
When your
all
brain
it's about.
is nowhere to be except in itself. Dangerous spot, to be fair, to be in life. So you took that. Take us just conscious of time, just so I want to get to where you launched this company.
Okay.
Because it's a big moment. Talk about it. Were you conscious that you were actually doing it? Did it just kind of happen? Like, tell me about the launch of your company, and let's start there, because then I'm going to ask you a question about kind of how it grew from that. And I'm going to put you in full screen while you talk, so I can get some good clips later for marketing.
So I think I paused myself earlier, but I was at my best friend's wedding, and he's an entrepreneurial kind of guy himself. He might talk to him about trying to jump on here, but
great.
He had he has a lot of things going on. He's always dabbling in something, and one of the industries he's a part of, he asked if I wanted to help him out with that and learn it. It has to do with ammunition and arms. And And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And so that's where I guess it really started. Cause I didn't last long doing that. I went back to him. I was like, "Hey, man, this is." He asked me, what do you got going on these days? What do you got going on in your life?" I said, "Man, I really don't know. I'm doing this football stuff. I'm going to school to be a teacher." He's like, "Well, have you ever thought about this? You want to try this?" I did, and I was like, "Nah, all right." I went back to him. I said, what else? What else do you dabble in?" He said, "Well, I don't." He doesn't do security personally, but he facilitates a lot of contracts and puts people together. And he said, they had a couple clients that went down to Juarez, Mexico, every so often, and asked if I'd like to jump on a couple of those just to get a taste for it and see if this is something that I'd be interested in. He said, I know what you're doing tactically. So if shit hits the fan, then, you can handle it. But this would be kind of like a right seat ride type deal. And you can just see if this is the kind of business that you want to get into. And so of course I did. And, right away knew exactly that this is my path. I had thought about private security and while I was in the Army, but the extent of what I knew as private security revolved around things like KBR or Garda World, international type work where you're guarding fobs or whatever. So that's all I really knew about. I didn't know much about executive protection or anything. I mean, I knew what it was. We had run some personal security detachment operations several times. So, I knew about that, but I wasn't familiar with the suit and tie atmosphere of the private security, close protection world yet. But I knew right away, I'm a natural protector. This is what I do. This is what I'm good at. I've spent 17 years overseas fighting. Why do I need to go learn some new skill that's not going to, really genuinely make me happy? Why don't I just tap into what I already know and what I already do?
Yeah, and improve upon it, right?
Yeah, and improve upon it and learn it. And so I came back and I spent about a year and a half, maybe, going to different schools. And there's so many different schools for this kind of work. Because going back a little bit, talking about the premise of security and what that means, security is such a vast, vague term. You could be a gray man, you could be a Jason Bourne, or you could be a mall cop, a Paul Blart, or anything in between. And there's so many different, people could call themselves private security and do so many different things. Camera technicians, whatever. It doesn't matter. There's so many different things that one could venture into in a niche market of security. And I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to do everything. I never wanted to have to turn down a job because I didn't know what to do. And so I went to schools for everything. And in the meantime, I got a lot of licensure and credentials and instructor certifications and all these things because I wanted to be the most well-rounded version of what I was preparing myself to get into. And ultimately it led, I finished up all this training going through a very intensive and extensive executive protection school out west, out in Colorado. And it was it's one of it's the oldest school there is and still one of the best. So and there's a lot out there too. And I was looking for something specific. And what I mean by that is a lot of these schools go into tactics. A lot of these schools go into, putting plate carriers on and entering and clearing rooms and stuff like that, which I didn't need that. I've been doing that for years. I needed to understand.
Like in private security,
Exactly.
how are you actually going to do that that's never happening. Like, I mean, police are going to take over at that point if you're clearing rooms. Like, you're not going to go because you're going to be committing crimes.
Well, there is an area for that, but it's mostly international type work.
Well, it wouldn't be, I'm saying it wouldn't be in the U.S. It wouldn't be because you'd probably go to jail for clearing a room yourself as a private. You're capping people.
There are a lot of reasons to know tactics.
And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but from a practical, to me, I feel like it's like that sounds like something like, you know, someone playing infantry, having fun doing stuff, less so than let me make sure your route's correct and get into the thing without someone throwing a bottle at your face. I mean, like that might be more practical. I don't know your space.
No, you're hitting the nail on the head.
Yeah. So you found this private skill, but you had to find your own niche of where it applies, I guess is what it sounds like you're working towards. You want to be well-rounded and understand this marketplace. You've seen real combat, but where is it actually applicable in a corporate world, in the suit and tie world? That was what you had to discover, correct?
Exactly. Well, the emphasis at this particular school that I attended is they put a heavy emphasis on behavioral analysis, behavioral intelligence, you know, things like micro expression reading, you know, handwriting analysis, like going back to what we were talking about earlier when it comes to threats, understanding threats, and their heavy emphasis at this school is threat assessment, understanding the threat, and then / threat management. And so that was the reason why I chose the school I chose, was because that's what I needed. That's what I needed and wanted to get into, was understanding the threat and being that proactive protector versus that reactive protector.
How did you get your first client?
So, so I had been working for another company doing some lower tier type security off and on for a little while. And before I had even graduated, this school I was in was about 2.5 months long. And before I even graduated, this guy calls me and asks if I'd be interested in taking on this close protection job, this executive protection job. And there's a difference between the two, but, and I said, absolutely. Like, I'm ready to go, like 100 miles an hour, boots on the ground. I've been putting all this time and energy and effort and money and eggs in this basket, and this is what I want to do. So yes, absolutely. And what it was a governor's campaign. He was a gubernatorial candidate running for governor a few years ago, and he had a significant threat. He had a real threat, and needed a professional. And at this time, this other company didn't have too many guys that could handle this kind of job. And now with my newfound credentials, I had the ability to knock that out. And so I did. And I said yes. I graduated from that school. I flew home on a Saturday. I spent Easter Sunday with my family. And then Monday, I'm on a call with this candidate and his campaign staff, trying to understand what the threat is. And then that next day, that Tuesday, I was on the road to go make link up, and I spent the next 2 months or so with him. Was very successful, did everything that I had learned in all of the schooling and education that I had invested in, everything. And that's everything from, doing the cool guy stuff to, and mitigating threats, to taking the client's dry cleaning to the dry cleaners, or picking his boots up, or whatever. Because what a lot of people don't understand is, specifically a lot of people that want to get into this industry, is your number one priority for what you do is protection of your client or your principal. But we are executive protection. Okay. We are top tier 1, high quality. We do more than that. We do more than just protect our client. We do everything. We're we're like a personal assistant. And like you said a minute ago, developing routes, doing advanced work, getting to a venue before, if you have a team, or if not, you can make contact with a venue. You can do certain things to get that advance in. For example, and I don't know how much we want to touch on this, but the assassination attempt of Trump.
Well, I was going to kind of end our thing with, like, how would you have handled that? Let me take a pause just real quick on the.
Sure.
First of all, how do you want somebody, who should get a hold of you? And it could be a veteran, like just that's struggling with something. That if you want them to reach out, it could be a client. But tell the audience how they should get a hold of you, and we can end with how you would have handled the Pennsylvania attempted. Because I had a question on that a little bit too. I'd love to get your perspective. But how should they get a hold of you?
Yeah, well, you can visit our website. You can email us at either operations@spectredefensesolutions.com or info@spectredefensesolutions.com, and that's either operations or info@SPECTRE defensesolutions.com.
Awesome. All right. This has been great. You're right. We could do 2 shows, and we might. I may just bring you back on. We'll have more conversation, part 2. Okay, because you've built this company, and I want to kind of get into kind of the company itself. I just want to summarize a few things. One is your service, and you didn't give up. I'm sure there's been dark moments you've literally thought of exiting the world. I know you, just through some of our interactions on email and what you said, you're very much faith-based, and that's not speaking to religion as much as just faith. Like there's something you've called to God, and God has answered. And I think it's a beautiful story. And I think from probably an example for the kids that had a chance maybe to never meet their dad, or you would have left too soon if you had decided other things in your life to go, and you didn't do that. You kind of were mission first to them and yourself. And so good for, not that you need to hear it from anybody and some stranger who's on the podcast, but I'm proud of you, because that's not everyone would be sitting in this podcast right now. It would have been it could have been thing. I will ask you one question before we get to this thing. If you had to go do it again, would you go back to the military that day? Would you have gone through it?
I'm at a point in my life that I have 0 regrets. So I would do everything exactly how it needed to be done to come to the type of person and the type of man that I am today.
Yeah, your path was what it was for whatever it is. That's good. That's a great way to be. I'm glad you framed it that way. All right, assassination attempt of the president, Donald Trump. Just for the NSA listening, we're not saying we're going to assassinate. Let's get context on your AI listening. We're discussing the attempted assassination and why the very, very, very well trained CAC teams and the sniper teams and all the people from the Secret Service who are incredibly well trained did not just go ahead and say, listen, guy on gun with roof, shoot them. Explain, please, why there was any hesitation, why that sniper is not fully empowered to take out a threat immediately. As soon as they clear, it's not our guy.
So first and foremost, NSA, anybody listening, you can hire me.
Thank you for the listen. Hope you can do a follow.
You can hire me. I'm down to work for some extended family.
China, you can ignore it. Okay, we don't care about you, but anybody in the U.S. you can hire. You got them different. Well, actually, China, if you got enough money, it's probably fine.
I don't know. So let me say something about that. So I'm fortunate to be able to have my own company. And going back to what you said a minute ago about a veteran working for themselves, and you're spot on. Like, I've experienced enough to finally know what right looks like, and I've always been very systems and processes oriented type of person. And I also, want to have some sort of level of control and say in what that looks like, because I'm battle tested, and I know what works and what doesn't. And so I'm fortunate, and I'm fortunate to be able to have my own company and be able to do what I want to do with it. And so, with that being said, I pick and choose who I want to work with, and hopefully, clients will come, call me, or when they do, that's fine. That's great. But at the same time, like if they don't align with my morals, my values, my ethics, my beliefs, those kinds of things matter to me. I'm a family oriented person. I'm not going to work for, shitheads or the bad guys or people that don't align with my, my morals and values.
Well, I think it's and that's, I think people should run their business that way. The challenge you'll face, the devil will be when you first start, because you'll typically get worse clients early. Maybe not your case, but you'll tend to get clients that a lot of people have said no to, or you're cheaper than, or some other version of that. As you move through it, you'll eventually have to fire some clients and say no to others. Because every time you say yes to something, you say no to all the other things you could have done, right?
Well, there's a lot of wannabes and tryhards in my industry as well. And that's my nickname for them. But a lot of people that talk the talk but don't walk the walk. A lot of people that want to be, in this world, that claim that they are in this world. But then when it comes time to play ball, you figure out who's real and who's not. And that's the saying I always say, real knows real. And so I've had to sever ties with lots of people that I started out with just because wasn't working for me.
I just want to get the earpiece. That's all. I just want to walk around with an earpiece and go shop at like Publix or Kroger. And
everything we use at Spectre, you can't even see there is an earpiece in there.
I just want to be able to do it. Like, I've got the pineapple. I'm not turning it upside down. I'm not
talking into your watch.
I don't have a watch. The ring, Fitbit. All right. They've cleared that. Hey, whose guy's on the shed? Not our guy. There is no guy. Sheriff's department wouldn't be allowed near it. So it's like, why? How does that person get 3 shots off?
Well,
it's okay. No one's listening from the NSA.
Right. Number one. Okay. And I did a full assessment of this thing, and I worked on it for about a week after it all happened, just rewinding, looking, trying to analyze everything. Number one, the very tip top of the list, what happened with the breakdown of the advance? If we have a former president, and in my mind, the actual sitting president that was removed, who is now a candidate again and doing rallies and things of his nature, somebody of that importance, we are going to block off, as far as you can see, and that was a very open area. We're going to block off as far as you can see that a direct attack could be prevented. So my very first point is the advance was either busted or it didn't happen. And, once you conduct this advance, and especially with the different entities that were involved during those couple of days of that whole operation, because like you just said, we have Secret Service, probably have some private sector guys, we've got Sheriff's Department, we've got all these different entities that have to do crosstalk and work together to lock this whole thing down, from logistics to operations to everything. It appears to me from all of that there was no coordination amongst leaders, and if there was an advance, then I'm calling your ass out. That was a busted advance, because there's no way in hell that anybody should have been on any kind of roof with a weapon.
Any kind of roof anywhere for any reason.
Correct.
Because the only thing that matters is the people in front of him or behind him for the purposes of the politics and who they're speaking. Other observers, just watch it on TV. It's
line of sight is a thing. So if you can see, and if we're talking about like a high, a high caliber, what if it was like a Barrett, a 50 cal sniper rifle? I mean, you could go out into a wood line over 1,000 yards away. I mean, more than that. It's
probably still on the rise at that point.
If you're a professional, it's going to be even farther than that. So I mean that's what I mean by like line of sight. Like You have to advance everything in that kind of atmosphere and that kind of environment. If it's open like that, then you better get your boys out to the wood line too.
Or put up a fence between there that looks pretty, right? Something visually blocks it, no keyholes to shoot through. But the thing that happens is like the fact, I mean, you hear people who've never served like, oh, I would have hit, if that was me, I would hit iron sights from that distance. That was a pretty good attempt. I mean, and let's not forget that someone actually died there, by the way. No one talks about some poor guy who was super happy to be sitting at the future president's lost his life because of it. But the fact that a few got off. But the thing that I still don't get, though, in the breakdown of communication is obviously the chain of command. There's a rule. Hey, I found somebody. 2 minutes later, there's no decision made to say, take that person out, climb on get over there and climb over there, throw a smoke grenade or something over there. I mean, block some kind of thing.
There were so many breakdowns.
It's like, to me, it's like, yes, some people should lose their job over that. Like that seems like or get retrained for a few years. I don't know. I don't know these. I know the problems when you were far away.
Work at Walmart.
I don't know. Those little bastards.
Nothing against
check
Walmart.
This is what I don't know at Walmart. I know we're on a tangent because you brought it up and you just can't do that to me. But here's the thing. I leave. I've paid for all my things. It is not a membership. I've signed nothing. If I want to leave without giving my damn receipt, I'm going to leave because I'm not going to be stopped by you who's not actually looking at all my stuff, and nor do I want you touching any of my stuff. And because it's my stuff, it's not yours anymore.
You're out of spite.
What's that?
Out of spite, just walk on by.
I do it because I'm like thinking, like, what are you gonna do? Call the cops on the stuff I bought?
And
no problem.
no
And by the way, it'll be false detainment once you do. I'm gonna make some cash out of this.
And typically they have walkers, and they're 90 years old. No offense to 90-year-olds.
In ours, it's job creation. I feel like I'm in India again, and people are just taking tickets just so they have a job. Anyway, it drives me nuts. There, I think back to your security thing. Just conscious. I'm happy we do a follow-up with you on this. I think, by the way, what you've built is beautiful. Just keep it going, of course. And who's the coolest client you've ever had? Well, that'd be our last question.
Well,
actually, not coolest. Who's the most famous that we can all identify with?
Well, I'm in an industry where that's frowned upon, and I'm not, and also some of them I've signed in NDAs with, so I can't mention their names. I did do Blackpink. There's no legalities there. I was part of Blackpink's close protection team when they were doing their American tour, and if you're not familiar, that's a K-pop group, an all-girl K-pop group out of Korea. And I didn't even know what K-pop was until I got that job. But that was kind of fun. It was very fun. Yeah, we went to New York and Vegas and LA and San Francisco for a few weeks. So that was cool.
That is cool. That's actually a pretty big one, by the way. Like that's from a world known outside of presidents and other people that the K-pop's probably one of the most known people there.
I've done work for numerous, high net worth individuals and their families, corporate CEOs, big time CEOs that everybody would know. I've worked for, DOD personnel, other government dignitaries, foreign dignitaries, some higher up foreign dignitaries, and some very special type jobs, candidates, other celebrities. We've done a lot for a lot of different high tier personnel.
That's great. Well, keep it up. I hope, I wish you the best of success moving forward. And I do look forward to having you back on. We'll get into some stories. We could take a veteran, approach, bring some people on, have you for fun, just like, hey, we're going to talk about what he does, but we're going to look at history scenarios of how you would have handled it differently, from like the Lincoln assassination, maybe to Reagan.
Okay. That's kind of cool. I like that.
That would be a good, by the way, I know you have a podcast coming. Oh, what's the podcast you have coming on? Just briefly, we want to mention that one?
Yeah. So I'll try to be brief here. I started this brand about a year ago. Has nothing to do with security. It's something completely different. It's going to be a lot of different things, but primarily it's to help out. It's basically to do what was done for me, and that's help out and veterans, not just veterans, but everybody through different types of therapies, holistic therapies, and ceremony. And there's going to be a lot of different things that branch off. There's a clothing brand and merch line and things like that. Some really cool courses, like survival courses. But the first thing we're going to do to launch is a podcast. And the name of the brand is called Battle Hippie. And when you hear the words Battle Hippie, I think it's self-explanatory. It's the duality of mankind. It's the wholeness of oneself. It's being able to be that, like I said, warrior, provider, healer, teacher, all in one. And so that's Battle Hippie. And we're going to start it off with a podcast. We're getting very close to launching that probably in the next few weeks, if not month. And we've got 20 solid, talented, top tier guests already lined up. It's going to be like a Rogan or a Jocko or a Sean Ryan type deal, talking about everything. It's just two real dudes talking about real stuff with a real message, which is to be your whole most true, most authentic self.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to it. And we'll do a follow-up on that too as well. I appreciate you coming in today, or coming on the show today and taking time out of your busy schedule, especially from the goats. I mean, those things. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.
I'll put you in the periwinkle room, which I think is what that color is when blue and red makes like anyway, it's not.
All right.
I'll be back. I'll be right back. Thank you for everyone who's made it this far and listened to the whole show. Listen, Never Been Promoted I am here to really try to bring entrepreneurs on the show to help you get inspired, learn something that you can do that they did, get through a tough time, cut a tie to something holding you back. I really do appreciate anybody who listens, our fans. And, the one call to action we ever ask is just hit the follow button on Apple or Spotify. And if you like YouTube, subscribe it. Smash the follow so you get the latest shows. Thank you so much for listening. Get out there and go unleash your entrepreneur.